So you have your Kubernetes cluster up and running. Now what? If you want to use Kubernetes, you need to deploy applications. And pods are one of the ways that we can do that. Pods are the fundamental building blocks of Kubernetes, and they're surprisingly simple to create once someone shows you how to do it. In this video, I'll demonstrate exactly what pods are and the 3 easiest ways to deploy them. Let's start with the quickest way to get a pod running. So the simplest way to create pods is using the kubectl run command. This is perfect for quick testing or when you're just getting started. So what we're going to do is we're going to run a quick nginx pod called nginx demo. So when I run this command kubectl run nginx demo image nginx, we now see that a pod called nginx demo has been created. Now, if you want to check out which pods are running here currently, I can run the command kubectl get pods, or kget pods for short. And I even have an alias called kgp if you want to have it even shorter. So if I check out these pods, nginx demo, we see already that the pod is already running. So this is the fastest way to get a pod up and running if you're just starting out, if you're testing out things and you just want to get something up and running. So the kubectl run command is actually quite expansive. You can do quite a lot of things with it. So if you do krun and then help, then you see that you can do, it gives you a few very interesting examples here. So you can run a Hazelcast pod and let the container expose port 5701, for example. So you can expose ports, you can override things, you can add labels, you can change the images. There are all sorts of things that you can do. Set environment variables just from this kubectl run command. So for example, with --env, you can set environment variables, you can expose a port on the container, and you can add labels to the pod just from this command. So if I wanted to expose a port 80 and set an environment variable, I can use this command. So kubectl run, and then nginx env, so that's a new pod that's going to be created with the image nginx, and then I add the flag port 80, and then the env nginx host is example.com. So if I copy that and I run this, so now if I do kget pods again, I see I have a second pod running called nginx env. Now if the command to find more information on pods is kubectl describe. So if I do kdescribe pod and then nginx env, then here we see some more information. So you can see the name, which namespace it is in, when it was started, which labels it has, etc. But here we also see that it has this port property. And here we see it's exposing port 80. So this is very useful. You can just do this from the run command and you can expose the ports like that. So I'm not going to go into all of the information just yet, but for now it's enough to know that we have set a port and also our environment variable over here. We see that the environment is nginx host example.com, just like we specified. So there's a lot that you can do from this CLI command, kubectl run. And that is the fastest way how to run a pod. Now that we've seen how to quickly create a pod, let's understand what pods actually are. A pod is the smallest deployable unit in Kubernetes. It's the basic building block for running your applications. But here's the important part. A pod is not a container. Instead, it's a collection of containers and their associated resources that are deployed together as a single packaged unit. The word pod in Kubernetes comes from a pod of whales, which is just a group of whales. Just like multiple whales swim together in the ocean, multiple containers can run together in a pod. This nautical theme is consistent throughout Kubernetes. In fact, the word Kubernetes itself means helmsman in Greek. It's the person who steers a ship. So a pod is not a container, but a pod is a collection of containers. A pod can have one or more containers, and these containers will share the same network namespace, meaning that they can communicate via localhost. They share the same storage volumes, and they have the same life cycle. They are created and destroyed together. Think of a pod as a logical host or group for your containers. In traditional deployments, you might run multiple related processes on a single VM or physical server. In Kubernetes, those related processes would run as containers within a pod. Pods are also ephemeral by nature. This means that they're temporary and they can be terminated at any time. So when a pod dies, Kubernetes doesn't automatically bring back that exact pod. Instead, it will recreate a new version of the pod, which might even be placed on a different node or a different server. A pod definition typically includes several key components. Containers, the actual application containers that will run inside the pod. As mentioned, most pods have just one container, but multi-container pods are used for tightly coupled applications. Next, we have init containers. These are specialized containers that run and complete before your application containers start. For example, you might use an init container to check if a database is ready before starting your application. Third is networking. Every pod gets its own unique IP address. All containers within a pod share this IP address and can communicate with each other using localhost. Fourth is storage. Pods can have volumes attached to them, and these volumes can be shared among all containers in the pod, allowing them to share data. So now that we understand what pods are conceptually, let's look at a more powerful way to create them. So let's dive into creating pods using YAML. So while kubectl run is convenient for simple things and when you're testing out things, you want to get something up and running quickly, in the real world, you typically will use code to talk to the API server and to provision resources on the Kubernetes cluster. And you do that through what is called YAML manifests. So let's take a look at this simple YAML manifest for a pod. We see that it has a kind of pod. It has a label of ab web. It is the name of the pod is web app. And then here we give it a list of containers that we want to provision. So in this case, we are only doing one container with the name nginx and the image nginx latest. And we are also exposing the port 80 again. So what you see here, this container port 80, is equivalent to running the kubectl run with the port 80 flag. So the way we can use this is I will copy this over. And let me just delete all of the pods that we had. So you can do delete pods all. So now it is deleting all of the pods. And if I now do get pods, then we see there are no resources left. So I will just create a new pod.yaml file by writing nvim pod.yaml. And here is my pod.yaml file where I pasted in the exact same YAML that I had here in my little document. So now we have a YAML manifest to create a pod. And how are we going to deploy this? Well, for this, we use the kubectl apply command. You do kubectl apply and then -f because we're going to give it a file. And then we're going to give it the pod.yaml file that we just created. You can also do kubectl create with the f, but apply is better because if you use apply and you make changes to the file, it will actually diff the resources. It will pick up the differences and then it will apply them accordingly. So always use the apply command. So if I now do get pods again, we see that we have our web app pods here. And if I do get pods show labels, for example, then we see that this label that it has gotten is app is equals web, just like we put in our YAML manifest. So that is the second way how we can deploy pods on Kubernetes. So the advantage of YAML is that it gives you complete control over every aspect of your pod. And you can version control these files and reuse them across different environments. And this is where you can get into GitOps, which I've created videos about on my channel as well that you can look up. So let's look at an example with multiple containers and a shared volume. So this is a more elaborate one. So we have, again, the list of containers here. But here, instead of just one, we have an extra container here. In this case, it's a content generator that will create some content for the index HTML for the Nginx pod. So you're basically giving it the content that it should serve, that the Nginx web server should serve to the user. And in order to have the data being shared across these pods, we are giving it a volume and a volume mount. So this way, these containers can share the same storage. So if you're a beginner and you see this and all of this is a bit overwhelming to you, I fully understand. It was really hard for me in the beginning to wrap my mind around this. And that is why I created my KubeCraft DevOps community. So this is a place where you can learn Kubernetes from senior people like me, who are there to answer questions all day long. But also I created a Kubernetes fundamentals course, which is different than all the other courses because I set it up so that we are sitting together as if we're sitting together in the same room with our laptops, and I'm sitting there teaching you this as we go along. So it's very hands-on. Just like this video, it's a lot of practical application. We're constantly running kubectl commands, and I'm explaining it as we go along. So as you see here, the section on pods alone is 50 minutes, and then there's another one where I go deeper into the YAML, which is another 30 minutes. So it's very deep, it's very elaborate. So in this course, you will learn these aspects of creating multiple containers. Will learn about storage and networking. So I've gotten really good feedback on this course, and I highly recommend you check it out. Now, we have been creating YAML files just from a text editor. But the cool thing is with kubectl, we can also generate YAML from the commands. So it's very helpful when you're learning Kubernetes that you can use the dry run command and then output things as YAML. So let's check out what that looks like. So I have this command here that I copied over, and I will just delete the pods again, and I will remove my pod.yaml. And if I now do this, so what we see here is kubectl run again. We're going to run Nginx pod with the image Nginx, but here there is this dry run is client. So it will dry run this command. It won't actually apply it to the cluster. It will just do as if. And then we output this as YAML into a file. So let's check out what this looks like. Pod.yaml. And here we see that we have generated the YAML object. We didn't have to type all of this out. It has generated for us. And here we see it has a few extra things that we didn't have in our first YAML. So this also means that they are not required. So I can just delete this to clean it up a little bit. But here we see that we have a very simple pod.yaml that we generated from the kubectl command. And you can do the same with services, with deployments, etc. You can do so many things. You can generate so much YAML just from the kubectl command, which is extremely useful if you're going for the CKA, CKAD, or the CKS certifications, because in those practical certifications, you have to be fast. So this workflow is really useful for learning. You can generate the YAML structure and then customize it to your needs before applying it. And you might be wondering, why don't we just use the kubectl create command? So there is also the kubectl create command that we can check out, help. So why were we using kubectl run if there is a kubectl create command? Because creating pods is what we're doing, right? Well, let's check it out. Let's see what happens. If I run kubectl create pod Nginx pod with the image Nginx, let's see what happens. Unknown flag image. So kubectl does not accept the the pod object. It only is accepting things like cluster roles, cron jobs, deployments, jobs, but not pods. Pods are separate from that, and they have their own command called kubectl run. Now the truth is, in real production environments, you rarely create standalone pods directly. Instead, you typically use deployments, which manage pods for you and provide additional features like scaling and rolling updates. However, when you are just starting out or testing applications, running pods is where you can begin. Understanding pods is essential since they are the foundation of all workloads in Kubernetes. And when you understand those, the next step is to learn about deployments. And these are covered in great detail in my Kubernetes Fundamentals course in KubeCraft. And just to give you an impression, the module on deployments is an hour long just by itself. Then we go into namespaces and the example application. So this is already 2 hours of deep dive into deployments and how to deploy applications using deployments. But next comes networking, there is storage, there is Helm. It's everything that you need to know to get started with Kubernetes. And you don't only get access to the courses, but you also get access to a community of over 500 members that you can ask questions when you get stuck. And that is the great thing about my DevOps community, that if I had this in the beginning, I would have learned even faster, because if I would be stuck on a problem, instead of Googling around for hours, I could just ask the question in an active community where people are ready to help you. And I'm in there every day. You can see my activity here. I have almost a full green bar here for over a year now. So I'm here to help you. If you want to learn from me, join KubeCraft at school.com/KubeCraft.